Wagwan Speak Your Truth fam, this is your girl Yana Positive with another episode on the Yana Positive channel. What you know, this is Speak Your Truth the Untold, where we create an airy space of inspirational, relatable, empowering and elevating content. And today is no different. First of all, guys, can you give it up for the set? Look at this set. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Give it up for this set, because this set is the bomb. And this was done and brought to you by Elvia and Samuel. They're husband and wife who attend my church, who volunteered to do this for me. I mean, guys, they came here and they were here for hours just fixing up, and they did many of these things by hand themselves. I think they should start a decorating business or something, because this is popping. I don't know. I love it.
Really
it looks good. It look good. It look good. It look good. Yes. It's so comfortable, and
we even have
water.
Like,
listen,
this is real professional.
We have water,
setting. Fully decorated, new and improved. Speak Your Truth, the Untold. Gotta watch. This season is something you have to see, and we have this different set, but the studio was brought to you by the one and only Pastor Manning of the Westchester SDA Church. Big up Pastor Manning. Pastor Manning, we love you very much. Thank you so much for allowing me to use your space and your multi-million-dollar equipment. your equipment, which is like a bomb. Like, I don't know if you guys can see behind the set. I know you can't. I think you should do a video of the set.
Should do a video of the set.
This is real professional.
This is,
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to put it on my Instagram. Yes. I'm going to put it on my Instagram at Yana Positive, so you guys need to follow me. And of course, I'm going to give you all a back view of the set, because this is beautiful.
Do you have like videos of when you were creating the set?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, guys, y'all need to see this, because the equipment and the set and how it was done is like the bomb. You all need to see this. So I thank Pastor Manning for the studio, and Elvia Mendez and she's not Mendez anymore, I don't think so, and Samuel for their time and dedication and hard work and materials that went towards this set. Guys, I'm not even buy nothing. Nothing I buy. Like, alright, so I buy a little something, but most of it was donated by Elvia.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you guys. It's beautiful. It's really, really pretty. And of course, this is a whole new season. And this season is hotter than ever.
Yeah.
And by hot, I mean deeper than ever, because we talk about Speak Your Truth. It's about deep content. And I do have a surprise. You see this lovely lady sitting right across from me. We've seen her before, right? She's family. She's been here since day one. She's been on Speak Your Truth, what, like 3 or 4 times now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
She is a beautiful lady inside out. And she has a surprise for us, because I'm over here, but this is the guest seat.
Yeah, so she's actually in the guest seat. So she's the interviewee and I'm the interviewer. And as Ayana mentioned, that this season will be much more different, because we're going much more intimate and much more intimate. And today we do have an intimate story to tell, and maybe one day I will be in the guest seat, more than likely. So you guys really need to tune in.
Yes. But now I've introduced Sudani. I've thanked my sponsors for this set and the studio. Speak Your Truth has sponsors. Listen to me now.
New alert. Speak Your Truth is now sponsored.
It's now sponsored. Get on this train, friend.
Yeah.
And I have done my part, and now I'm gonna hand over the reins to Sudani, who will take it from here, guys.
Hey, so Ayana introduced me. I am Sudani Bennett. I'm no stranger to Speak Your Truth, the Untold. And this is an Irish space.
Yes, it is.
It's inspiring, it's relatable, it's inspirational and empowering. And today Ayana has a inspiring story. She has an Irish story. To say. And as was mentioned before, we're gonna get a little bit more intimate. We're gonna get to know Ayana a little bit more. Ayana is gonna come more naked to us,
before you
today, more naked to us today, and more naked in this season to come, because we're getting more intimate. And so we're going to get into the story, but first of all, this is not an easy story for any particular person to share, because it means you're opening a can of worms, and then persons are gonna know that, guess what, this is something that has happened to Ayana. This is something that has happened to me. And I think that you're very brave to be actually sharing this story and deciding to share this particular story now. It's not too late to ever share something that intimate that has happened to you. But I told Ayana that once you're able to put the story into words, then it means that you're moving forward. And I'm happy that you're moving forward from this experience. So what particularly caused you to share this story?
It was the realization that this is not a world I want to live in, where, and we'll get more into it, but where people are silenced because of the victim blaming that we have in society. Like, whatever happens to you is entirely like your fault. So much stuff that is placed within your control that shouldn't really be. And thinking about my sisters and my growing up too, like, I grew up very, very sheltered. That's the best way. My mom was a good mom. That's the best way she knew how to protect me, was to shelter me from the world. But you can only shelter a child for so long. And now I feel like people need to be educated to know how not to make the same mistakes and make the same decisions that would have been made by the previous generation, or even by myself. So having 3 younger sisters who are coming up and realizing that this is a part of my story that they don't know, and if they ever encountered something as hideous in the world, that, you know, they know who to talk to, or even get the information to prevent them from going through the same things that I did. And there are so many girls that I know who've been through the same thing. So I've been going around and this is not an easy story for me to share, and I pray that God give me the strength through this. But it's been a couple years, and I founded Speak Your Truth based on the experiences that I've had, and realizing that there is a lot in saying your truth and speaking it out loud and finding healing and allowing others to find healing as well. And just to not keep you guys in the dark any longer, when I was 18, I was sexually assaulted by somebody that was pretty close to me, and that shattered my whole world. It wasn't something that I think anyone could have prepared me to go through, and I don't think that things like that happen, you can fully heal from it, because you're no longer the same
person.
but you have to learn to live with that pain and learn to live with the new person that you've become. And that's what I've been learning to do for the past few years. And I'm almost 25 and I'm realizing that I'm at a pinnacle, like I'm changing. And changing is hard.
Definitely.
It's painful. But I'm definitely loving the woman I'm becoming. And it's even small things that realizing, like the other day I put purple in my hair. And I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but guys, follow me. The other day I put purple in my hair because the question is, why did I decide to share the story? And I thought it was a spur of the moment decision. Like I saw it, I was like, oh, this looks good. Let's go with it. And for the longest while, my color has always been red. And I realized that I really love purple. And it sounds silly, but at first it was pink, which was girly and innocent. Then it was red because it was a woman I had to become, fiery and strong and independent. And now I feel like it's purple because I'm stepping into my soft girl era. I'm morphing. I'm becoming a woman that no longer has to be strong all the time and no longer feels the need to put up this wall and this barrier. I am healing and I'm changing, and it's hard and it's painful and I've had a few breakdowns, but I'm changing for the better. So I decided to share this story because I now can share it from a place of healing rather than a place of pain. I haven't gone to the extent of like, oh my gosh, this is not something that affects me anymore. But this is now something that I can find words in, find way to put it in words without, like I would not be able to do this without thinking about it and instantly crying, So now I'm able to share it.
Okay, thank you. So you have mentioned like how you came out on the other side of this particular story, how you have fought, how you have morphed into the woman that you dream of becoming. But I want you to like put us to the particular side where this has affected you in a different light, because now we're seeing you coming out. But like when you were in it, that is the part that we actually do not know. So how has it affected you on the other side?
I did mention like when I was 18, being sexually assaulted by someone I knew, very close. The origins of it, I feel like we need to go back to, is when I was a child, about 12 or 13, I met this person. Did you want? Sorry. Like, I don't know how to be an interview.
Okay, so, all right. Yeah, go to it. I'll go back to the original question when I asked, like, how has this affected you? So, in terms of going into the particular person, could I say how has it affected you and mention the statistics at the same time? So you just put the two questions because they're beginning to tell me who the particular person is.
I'm beginning to go into the story. Yeah. Okay.
So,
you want to rephrase the question? Or do you want me to just begin answering?
I would have to rephrase it since I'm going to put in the statistics part because you're beginning to tell me who the particular person was. Just like a two-part question you're going to answer.
All right, ready?
Should I start with a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have mentioned the positive sides that you're coming out and you're morphing into the woman that you wanted to become and that you would have already fought through the battles. But like on the other flip side, we didn't know what was happening during the experience while you were in it. But now you're telling us like how you have evolved from the experience and learned from the experience. So how has this particular experience affected you? And like 90% of victims mentioned that the person who actually assaulted them was someone who was very close, someone whom they've trusted or someone who they confided in. So who was this particular person to you?
I will say though that I'm not gonna tell you like his name. We're not gonna go into that, like who he was, who he is now. We're not gonna go into that, but I definitely can tell you that when the story began, when I was like 12 or 13, I met him. He was the first person I ever heard talked about sex out loud. And for me, that was something that was taboo. Like, I've never heard anybody talk about it. And he talked about it in the sense where he was a bit of a motivational speaker, like a guest speaker in that scenario. He gave us like this pledge, I will, and I remember putting up like I have markers and putting it up on my wall. From now until the day I marry, I will abstain from sex and all sexual activities for myself and my future husband. And having that going through as a Christian, as a teen, that was something I had on my wall. I held close to me. I held dear. So the second time I saw him again, because this was somebody that I held close to me, that, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. You're the one who inspired me. And when I saw him again, I was 18. And I went up to him and I had a bit of a fangirl moment, which I never do. I was like, I really loved how you presented that. I know you don't remember me because I was a child, but you made me know about the effects of having sex before marriage, and it has kept me, and I've abstained. Like, all my little friends were having sex at the time and I wasn't, because this was what kept me. And he became sort of a mentor and somebody close. At the time I was going into university, he helped me with so much, like applying for scholarships, just being there to give me advice. He became a part of my life. And at first I was grateful because I thought that somebody cared. And that was not it. That was his way of finding a way into my life.
So for many people, what you just mentioned, you think that this is a particular person that cares for you, they care about your future, they want to invest in you as a person, and that there is no, like, this is not anything dishonest, like this is something good that I am doing. But looking back, like for many persons out there, they're like, oh, he helps me a lot, that is all, and it looks so good to other people, and people might think that this particular person is so kind and that they are caring. But could you spot, like looking back now, because you were 18, looking back now, was there any red flags that could indicate that this was sexual grooming, so that persons out there can understand that this might look very pretty, it might look so green, but it's red? Was there any like
moment? Yeah. So just to mention to everybody that I always say, like, I grew up very sheltered, and y'all, I don't think you understand me when I say that, but I wasn't allowed to go out without my mother or my brother before I was 18. Like, never, ever. I've never been out without one of them. I've never been out with my friends. I outside of like school, home, and church, I've never ventured out. I had a little boyfriend who was long distance, and it was nothing really sexual going on. So I didn't know anything. I was very naive. So at 18, I didn't see these things. But in hindsight, there were some things that he did that were sexual grooming. That first thing I found weird was that he would stare at me. And it started with a stare, guys. I know it sounds weird, but as a woman, your intuition goes up. Like, oh my gosh, he's looking at me. That's so weird. Like, he's staring at me. He would bop my nose, which I know that guys do when they find people cute. I don't know. It became...
It's a physical act of lightness.
Yes. It became more sexual when he then went from staring to now talking about it. Like, he would say, you know, I could make a woman orgasm just by talking to them. Like, and to me, I found it okay. He is educating me on certain stuff. That's what my naive mind said. But the minute they go from like staring to talking about sex, you know, and the next phase was him starting to touch me. And I guess I kind of ruled that under the caption of, okay, this has happened, this is not okay, but he knows what's best for me and he won't do it again, because that's what he kept telling me. Like, he would kiss me one time and afterwards I'm like, this is not okay, this is not okay. And I told him, like, this is not something I'm okay with, you can't do it again. And then he would promise, no, I'm never gonna do it again. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to do it. You didn't even kiss me back. Like, I'm so ashamed now. I'm not gonna do it again. And when they promise that, don't believe them. Just know that if it's somebody that crosses that sexual boundary, right away, just somebody that you're not supposed to be around anymore. It went from kissing to next time it was kissing to now heavy petting and touching, and me saying no, me pushing back, but not having that respected. And it sounds weird to persons who have not experienced it, but when you're a teen and you are looking for love and you are looking for acceptance and you don't get it anywhere else except this one place, you will accept just about anything to feel that way again. So when somebody does something that crosses that boundary and you push back and you say no, and they say, oh, I'm not gonna do it again, it was just a mistake, you want to believe them because you want that love, you want that acceptance, you want somebody who cares about you, you want somebody who is seemingly there for you emotionally. And he, on so many levels, emotionally manipulated me, and he had the wherewithal and the credentials to do such. He was very good at manipulation. He was textbook, all of it. He knew what to say, what to do, and the 18-year-old me was no match for that brain power, no match for this big man that spent his entire life studying how to manipulate people. Like, that 18-year-old me could not have known what she had known, and this is me taking away that blame from myself. Another thing was that when it went from heavy petting, it now became one night, we were talking, and he started with a sympathy story of what his childhood was like, how hard it was. And it went into him kissing again and heavy petting, and I was like, I told you, like, I'm not okay with doing this. The doors of his cars were locked, like I couldn't get out, and it then became him climbing over and holding me down. And for someone who's never experienced anything sexual, it hurt a great deal. I could tell you that. I remember screaming and crying and saying no and pushing back, but he's bigger in body and he had me pinned down to that seat. And afterwards, the aftermath was even so much worse than what happened in that moment, because in that moment, it was so horrible. I convinced myself that it just did not happen. And he looked at me and I was like, was that sex? And he was like, no, it was not. And I can tell you again, I was naive, so I believed him. And it was something horrible that my mind could just not wrap my head around. And so I believed him. I believed that was not sex. That was just him coming on to me, and what he described as penetrating like the outer part of myself, but not the inner part. So it didn't qualify as sex. And I asked him, why did it hurt so much? And he was like, because you're not used to it. Like it wasn't sex. It was just me testing the waters. And like it sounds out of this world, because when we think about rape or sexual assault, we think that it's somebody like holding you down, somebody you don't know, finding you on the streets and sticking you up with a knife or a gun. But that was not it. This was somebody that was close to me. This was somebody that I trusted. And this was an experience that I could not have predicted would have happened, but it did. And for a while, which was why I didn't talk about it for so long, I really, really blamed myself, because I thought one person could not be that stupid and that ignorant. But realizing that my lack of knowledge was not my fault.
No, definitely.
And me saying no was a complete sentence. That was my boundary.
Like first and foremost, you did say no, and you did let him know that this was not okay. You stood up for yourself, but instead he violated your boundaries. And I know that in society, Ayana has just given us a perfect description of what the manipulation looks like. Because like for persons who have not had this experience before, they might be thinking, how could you not know? How could you not see? But they do have a way of cawing people and luring people. And once they have the skill of emotionally manipulating you, then they actually knows what to do. And you are not too old to be emotionally manipulated. You do not know too much not to be emotionally manipulated. And so it's not a question of how could you not know, because like these persons have way of doing stuff, and in most instances it's not the first that they're actually doing this thing. So it's like a proven method. And Ayana, you mentioned that you believed him that it wasn't sex, and that is how much you trusted him. That is how much you think that he knows what's best for you, and he knows much more than you. But when did you come to the realization that this was actually sex, and I have been violated sexually, and that I have been sexually abused by this particular person? At what point in time did you come to the reality that this was what happened?
So as I said, like, this was so horrible. Like, I didn't believe that it was sex. because he told me it wasn't, and I didn't know what it was like. I'm 25 this year, but I was not rich, so I did not have a phone until maybe like 11th grade. I mean, I've seen stuff, but I didn't really know how everything worked. And so when somebody that knows more than you tells you something, you tend to want to believe them. And when something so horrible happened to you, your mind just cannot wrap itself around it. But when your mind can't wrap itself around it, trauma, your body remembers your trauma. And so the next morning I woke up, there was blood.
Which I want Ayana to stick a pin, because I wanted to know what was the aftermath physically and emotionally, so that if a particular parent will be watching the episode, or any other person that has sisters and brothers, they will be able to identify these things that might look normal but is very subtle. So like, what was the physical and emotional aftermath, so that it can be identified by persons who will be viewing this content?
So physically, it felt like I was gonna see my period, but I wasn't. I knew I was not supposed to. It felt like a cramp, and everything in that area just hurt. There was an ache. There was blood afterwards, so my panty there was blood in it. That's when I came to realization that I messaged him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was sex," and he was like, "Yeah, are you happy?" And I'm like, I'm not. No, this is something I told you, like, I'm saving myself for marriage. And for me, like, getting out of bed was hard in the mornings. Emotionally, I think I became a totally different person. I got very angry, and a lot of people saw it as, oh, she's a person that's acting out. And I already had previous issues that made me angry, but this was a different anger. This was an anger at the world. This was an anger at every single person. This was an anger at everything. I had no patience for anything at all, because I had so much going on in my mind. Because I grew up Christian, I wanted to save myself for marriage, and the church teaches you that so often, that your worth is attached to your virginity. Like, I'm like, who's gonna want me now? You know, I had a boyfriend at the time that obviously we could have gone and had sex, but I did not, because I wanted to save myself. And I'm like, what is he gonna think? So emotionally, I was in turmoil. For me, it was like, even for a parent to identify these predators, they find a way into your life. It's not just instantly they become, they find a way in your life. And I became closer to him. I wanted to go places with him, to do talks and, hear about his work and stuff like that. And afterwards, I just didn't want to do anything. I had no pleasure doing anything. I was depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. Like, and there is a anger that you can identify almost. Even now that I've experienced this, I can identify people who've also experienced this, because there's an anger at the world for every and any little thing, and you genuinely know they're not angry at the person around them, they're just angry at the world. And that's the pent-up energy of being sexually assaulted. It's just something you can see from afar, that anger, that depression, and genuinely comes from inside, and not from the outside world, that they're faced with their trauma. Their body remembers, even though their mind is trying to say no. There's a lot of things attached to it. I didn't even know it was sexual grooming until my 4th year of university, when we had to attend all these random seminars.
Oh, Sue and Pet.
And I remember going into one and hearing about sexual grooming and having to come out the seminar because I realized that that is what I went through. So even years later, you can pick up the signs, you can pick up the signals of what happened. Yeah.
You mentioned that, I mean, like, as Christian women, the desire is to wait until marriage to have sex, but that was taken away from you. It wasn't a choice that you actually made. And I mean, it's normal to question your worth if it is that you always hear that your worth is tied to your virginity, how much partners you've had, whether you had sex before marriage. But are you still in that place where you question your worth? I know you mentioned how you have morphed and evolved and you cannot heal completely at all, but do you go back to that particular place where you question, am I worth it? What will anyone think if I share my story? What will anyone think? Will a husband want me if I say that, hey, I've had sex before and that I am not a virgin?
That's a very good question, because going back also to your first question, tying with this one, my worth back then was nilch, nothing. Like, I remember, like, afterwards starting to work at a call center and just being around a lot of guys, because before, guys were my friends. They didn't even take much interest in me. But now I busted out a few hips, a little hip, and now there was like a little interest. And because I had no self-worth, I would like sit in their laps. I mean, these were my guy friends. I sit in their laps, I would hang around them. And the other workers in the call center would say like, oh, she's immature. They're gonna use her when she goes to university because, you know, she pounces herself onto guys. And for me, that was my way of dealing with my trauma and feeling like I had no self-worth. And there are 2 ways a person usually goes, according to research and scientists. They usually go to the same sex, or they become promiscuous. And I didn't turn to the same sex, I became promiscuous. And for me, that I felt like I had no self-worth. I mean, these guys would walk around, they would slap me, and I was like, I don't want to be slapped, but at the same time, I do want their attention because I felt like I wasn't worth anything. Like, nobody will want me now, so what's the sense? Like, there's no reason for me to pretend to be this Christian girl with this reserve, because now I no longer felt like a Christian. Now I cannot give my husband a virgin. Now I felt what it is like, and like there is no way.
What more is there?
What more is there?
Because I had this one thing that meant the world to me as a woman and as a Christian, and now it has been taken away, so that means there is absolutely nothing else left to me. And what you were displaying were more of the behavioral signs of sexual assault. And in society, like, we see so many young girls and they date around and they date other men, and we call them whore, and we say that they are promiscuous, but these are girls like you.
Yeah.
These are girls that would have gone the other route instead of going to the same sex.
Yeah.
But society just doesn't understand what's actually happening to these girls or what their story is. It might not be that they have been sexually assaulted, but it might just be someone like you, And I bet like persons looking out might say like, oh, she money, and she love man. But that wasn't the case for you.
That was me grappling and struggling with this new identity of not being the virgin Christian, because what now sets me apart. And it took a long time for me to really heal from that. I remember still going into relationships, and I've tried to be celibate for so many years, like trying to go back to being the person I was before, when true fact there was no way back, because this experience changed me. So it was a long road to finding out who I was now, and realizing that even though I was no longer a virgin, I could choose to be celibate. Like, I didn't choose to be sexually assaulted, but I definitely could choose to who I am now. And that's when I started the road of being celibate years and years, and I've broken it several times on several occasions. And for me, each time I felt like, oh my gosh, my conscience bothered me. And I remember dating a guy, and somehow it slipped. I did not mean to tell him, but I ended up telling him, and he had that kind of aura that people just come to him and tell him things because he's that type of person that you're drawn to. And I ended up telling him, and I didn't plan on doing that. And that night, I fell asleep, and he tried to wake me up, and I started hitting him and screaming, no, 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 get off me. And he couldn't get me up, so he recorded it, and when he played it back, that's exactly what happened. It was like, because now I told him, I was living it out in my dreams. My subconscious was eating me alive. And I realized that I had to break the cycle of being in relationships and having sex first and then dating guys. And I decided I was going to be celibate, and that meant losing the person that I was with at the time, which I loved very much. And that meant coming to the place where I can now say I've been celibate, not telling how long, because I want you to think in my business. But I've been celibate for a while, and it's something that now when I date, that I put forward, like, these are my boundaries. I am celibate. Like, this is not a joke. No, you cannot change my mind. It's not a game. I'm not playing hard to get. This is who I am. And not dating somebody that I know will violate that boundary, and being in a space that I know is conducive to violating that boundary. So not going in a little room by myself, or, being in a space with that person where that could potentially happen. And also, I know that I can't do it on my own. Like, it's just me and God. Like, God got me through that, and knowing my self-worth came to me realizing just how much it's just me and God. Like, this is just me and God on this journey to proving to myself that I am worth being loved, and setting those boundaries to ensure that other people realize that I'm worth it as well. So I would say the big difference between who I was back then and who I am now is that I broke the cycle of ensuring that I am good in bed to be worth keeping, because that is not my worth. Attaching my worth to being, I have to be a good girlfriend, I have to love you enough for you to stay with me, and just craving that attention that comes from, oh, I don't want to be alone. Like, I don't want to face my life alone. I don't want to face these pains alone. and really sitting with myself in solitude and realizing I am worth being loved. If somebody doesn't meet my boundary, then he can leave. It's take it or leave it. It's not adjusting my boundary to suit your need.
Yeah.
And 3, it's realizing that even though I'm not a virgin, I can now be celibate, and I can go on that journey trying to find a man who is okay with that and who is content with doing it with me. Because if you ever get a partner that is not okay with it, then it does not work. It really does not. So just making that realization.
Yeah. I am so happy that you're at the place where you're setting boundaries and actually sticking to them. Because like for a particular person who have gone through her experience, setting boundaries can be difficult.
Very difficult.
And I know that it would have taken a few bumps and hiccups for you to get here where you're saying, I am not adjusting my boundaries to please anyone. My no means no. And if you can't take it, then you got to leave it. Like, how did you come to this particular place where you get so assertive in knowing what you want and in actually protecting yourself and maintaining your boundaries? Because whenever you do not maintain your boundaries, like, you feel guilty. You feel as if you're not assertive enough. Because the thing is, when you set boundaries, persons will actually try to push that boundary. Like in your circumstance, you said no, but the particular person pushed the boundary. So how did you come to this place where you become this assertive? Because like for many persons who have been through the experience, it is so hard to set boundaries, because in your mind, I've had an initial experience that shows me what boundaries are and how it can be violated.
That's so important, because a lot of people, believe that, okay, it happens once and then, you can only be raped once in your life and that's it. It's a one-way ticket. But in actuality, when you've had the experience once, it's realizing afterwards, as you said, that even though you set a boundary, somebody can violate it. So now it's like, I don't want to set a boundary. And I've placed myself, or I've been in situations where I see the precursors before, because now I've experienced it. So I see where this is going beforehand. But instead of saying no, I will reluctantly say yes, just because if I say no, I know the effects of it. And it sounds weird to nobody who's ever experienced that. But once you've said no and have that violated, you are scared that saying no again will only affect you, because he's living his life happy and full. And he's fine, but I'm hearing pieces and I have to pick up the pieces once I say no, but it's realizing that you need to fight like hell. If it is that you need to beat up somebody, if it is that you need to scream, say no, and realizing that even if you have to fight yourself out of the situation, you will fight. Even if he pins you down, know that you set your boundary and this cannot be your fault. Taking the blame off yourself that, hey, this was not my fault. Things are out of my control, but the way I respond to it, do I go to therapy or do I fall off a cliff? Do I become promiscuous, or do I go on the journey to find out who I am after this trauma? Realizing the boundaries starts with knowing first what your boundaries are. You had something.
Yeah. So you mentioned about how you respond after the experience. So I just want you to let the viewers know, like, what proactive steps did you actually take to get here? Because the steps might have taken a long time. Did you go to a therapist, see a therapist? And how much years after that experience did you actually see a therapist?
So I have a story for this one. I know we're at time, but there's a small story for this one. So when this happened right before you.
Was the therapist the first person you confided in with this story?
The therapist was the second person. The first person was my boyfriend at the time, who I was with because I thought, oh, this is a good guy. Like, I can't go wrong here. Like, he's not gonna violate my boundaries or anything. And he did not in that way. But what happened was that we were on a trip. Me, myself and him. Is that right? I don't know English. Myself, him, and some other persons in uni. And I mean, these were the brightest minds I knew at the time. These were brilliant people. These were builders of this country. I mean, these were thinkers and shakers. And we were in the bus, and the argument came up of, do you think rape is perpetuated or is caused by the woman's code of dressing?
Wow.
The whole bus was like, yes, a woman is assaulted based on how she dresses, including my boyfriend at the time. And this was something I shared with him before. And there were two of us who were saying, no, a woman cannot be blamed for sexual assault by the way she dresses. And they were like, yes, a man is visual, a woman should be careful. If you're dressed in a little thing and a man rape you, then you're the one who enticed him. And I mean, these were people I thought the world of. These were people that were deep thinkers, were like the next future of Jamaica. And I felt so angry. And I feel like I lost my temper quite a few times, and I almost broke down because this was something that I experienced, and I did not come right out to say that to them because I didn't have the words at the time. But here were a group of people I thought the world of, saying that they thought a woman did that by the way they dressed. And for me, that was not the case because it wasn't the way I dressed. I didn't dress a particular way. And that's so very common in Jamaica, the victim blaming. It's the woman because of the way she's dressed, she depended on the man, this and that. Once you're over the age of 12 and you've been sexually assaulted, there's some form of blame attached to you. Oh, she just loved man, she shouldn't have done this, she should have done that. And there's no blame ascribed to the person that did this. And I was blaming myself and having these people reaffirm that,
that it was because of you.
If it was because of me, I was falling off a cliff. And I decided that either I'm going to fall off this cliff and fall into my depression, which I already had, and end up with suicidal thoughts. I need to go to counseling. And luckily, it was included as a part of my university. It was free for my university. So I went, I did counseling, and that's where the work began of like taking the blame of myself. Okay. And it wasn't until years later that I fully accepted that it was not my fault, that I did not cause this. But that was one of the steps I took. Like, I went to talk to somebody, because sometimes you feel like you can talk to a certain people, and that's not the case. You need to seek a professional. You need to seek, because you don't know who you can trust, to be honest. And if you have a parent that you can go to and you can trust, go to them. If you have somebody who's close to you that you know will advise you in the right way, go to them. And you need to seek professional help, because this is not a trauma you can just overcome by talking to somebody. Or by meditating, or by pushing it aside. You need somebody. And there was a study done by The Guardian in 2021 that over 60,000 women participated in, and girls from like 12 to 40. And it said that 60% of the females who've been sexually assaulted did not know it was sexual assault until afterwards, because your mind says no. Like, it's such a horrible experience that your mind cannot wrap itself around it.
So it's such a horrible experience that, like, for many persons, like, you're in denial.
You're in denial
that this happened to me. I am a victim of sexual assault. How did the experience taint your perspective or ideology of sex? No. And then, like, is there a difference between how you see sex then versus now, or how you see men?
After the experience, I saw it as a way that men gain access to my body. For me back then, and I'm telling you guys this because a lot of girls do it, and I don't want you to fall into the same trap. Because back then, I met somebody afterwards that told me that, because this was somebody who took my virginity, this was somebody that I had formed that bond with, but I did not understand that this was a bond that was formed, because
Trauma bond.
It's a trauma bond, and it was a sexual experience, and it was intercourse, literally intercourse. So I met somebody afterwards that wanted to gain access to me as well, and I mean, the manipulation never ends. So he was like, if you want to get over him, all you need to do is be with somebody else and you'll get over him. And I was so desperate to leave that experience behind me, and just because it was so horrible and so painful that I wanted to, I mean, it's supposed to feel good, right? Like, I wanted to have that feeling. And so I jumped onto the next person, and then I jumped onto the next person. And it kind of became like a tool for me to escape what I had been through, rather than, okay, this is something sacred and I need to slow down and confront my trauma and stop using my body to try to forget it. Because by now my mind acknowledged it, and I tried so desperately to forget it and to push it down and to erase it and to pretend like it never happened or whatever. And now for me it's a bonding experience. Like, that part of myself is sacred. That is something that it's a joining of two souls together. It's not just a physical experience, but it's a bonding. And not everybody deserves to be bonded to me that way. So for me now, it's just like, okay, this is something sacred. This is something.
The other side of what it really is from the beginning.
Really is.
It just has been tainted based on your experience.
And now this is something that I should be able to enjoy.
Yeah.
And this is something that I should be able to consent to. Like, and now this is markers that I look for. I remember dating somebody the other day and them telling me that sex is a duty for a wife. And that triggered me, but I kept talking to them, but it went downhill from then, and I couldn't understand because he checked all the boxes: good job, financially stable, academically, very intelligent. He checked all the boxes: Christian, God-fearing, Adventist. And the minute he went, oh, sex is a duty for the wife, it just went downhill. I'm like, can you change the word duty, please? And he was like, no, I'm not going to change it because I'm right. It is a duty even when you don't feel like doing it. It should be something you willingly give to your husband. And I'm like, if I don't feel like doing it, that's not willingly giving, you know?
I have a voice.
I have a voice. And now my mind protects me from that because that didn't work out. And it was somebody I liked really at first, but now it's just like, well, that's my boundary. And whether I like him or not or have mushy feelings, if he bypasses that boundary, he is no longer welcomed in my space. He is no longer, and he voiced it from early, which was great. So he's no longer welcomed in my space. This is not something I can put up with. So back then it was just a tool to escape my trauma. Now it's just like, this is something sacred that I need to be sharing with my husband and not just everyone, anybody.
So we have heard Ayana's story of how she has been sexually violated by someone whom she trusts, someone who appeared very kind, someone who was very caring to her, and learning later that this was actually sexual grooming. And it can be so hard, especially for persons who are in certain situations where they need the help. You're gonna think that this person is your angel, this person is your savior, and they're sent in your life for a particular reason. But when you look back at the experience, you realize that this is actually sexual grooming. And a lot of girls like Ayana have the same story, and it may take a while for them to reclaim their voice. Because if you do not get your voice, then you cannot tell your story. And Ayana is so brave enough for speaking her truth. I thank you for speaking your truth, for reclaiming your voice, for reclaiming your story, for turning it around, for saying that this is not who I am. I may have had the experience, but it is my responsibility to take the proactive steps to be the woman that I want to become. I want to thank you for erasing the beliefs that you have that you're not worth it, because you are worth it, for believing that your worth is tied to your virginity, how much partners that you actually have. And I want to thank you for going through a life-changing experience and deciding that I want to evolve and I want to morph, because Ayana mentioned that change is so hard, and I don't think that persons who have not gone through the experience of actually taking proactive steps in order to change know how difficult it is. For anyone who has changed, because I know what that feels like, I know what it looks like, I know how to get up every day and having the discipline and consistency to be this is something I'm getting rid of in my life, and I need to actually work at it. So I want to thank you for reclaiming your voice and for telling your story. And you are so brave, because there are so many people out there who are afraid of telling their story because persons might talk about them. They might say that, they might ascribe even your worth to something else. So what would you tell someone who has actually gone through your experience? What would you tell them? What would you share with them?
No is a complete sentence. Full stop. If you didn't want to do it, you didn't want to do it. Full stop. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. No is a complete sentence. Once you said no, they should stop. If you have been through it and you're kind of not sure, or you're positive that this is what it was, whether it was full-blown sex or just sexual assault, heavy petting, anything at all that violated your boundary, please talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. If it is a professional, definitely talk to a professional, because not only will you need to let it out, but you will need the tools to now navigate the new person you have now become. You will never be the same, and that's okay, because you have the choice to make yourself stronger than before. Remember God in all things, because without God, I would definitely not be here. I would not be speaking to you. I would have succumbed to my depression a long time ago if it wasn't for God, because God should become the center of your life, and that's how you find true healing. Your worth is not attached to your virginity. Your worth is not defined by how many partners you have, what happened to you, whether you have lost it through consensual sex or not consensual. Your worth is not ascribed to what happened to you in the past. Thank God for Jesus, because the mercies are new every morning. And Mary Magdalene was there in his company when Jesus was here. So your worth is not ascribed to your past, but it's ascribed to your present and decisions you make in the future to become the new you. So I want you to know that you don't always have to be strong. It will make you strong automatically, but you don't always have to be strong. You can find places to be vulnerable and spaces to be safe. And healing is not linear.
It's continual.
It's continual. It does not stop. It's a lot of work. Someday you'll feel on top of the world, another day you'll feel like you're in hell.
Like I'm going in reverse.
But remember the work that you put in. Give yourself 24 hours to mourn, 24 hours to cry it out, 24 hours to be depressed, and get yourself back up the very next day and determine that you'll become stronger than ever. It doesn't mean nothing will touch you, just means you're becoming a better person. Healing is not linear. Like over the years, I've seen how it has affected my relationships, and the trauma goes so deep. I'm still working on it, still working on my boundaries, still learning to say no and mean no, still learning what my boundaries are and why I should take myself away immediately if somebody violates that, and not just be, give them a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. That's the old you. But just for somebody to know that your no means no, advocate for yourself, talk to a professional. Healing is not linear, and your worth is not attached to what happened to you. But you get to decide what your worth is, and God decided what your worth is before you were even formed in your mother's womb, and that you are his son and you are his daughter. That's pretty much what I have to share.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to Speak Your Truth. Thank you for tuning in and for listening to Ayana's story, because it needed to be shared. And I'm so glad that she has found the voice that she can now put the experience into words.
Yes, and thank you so much, Sudani, for creating that space for me to share, and you made it such a safe space for me to feel understood and, don't feel too icky sharing this truth, because it's a hard truth to share. And I do believe that a lot of persons would benefit from it. Doesn't make it any easier, but you have definitely made that sharing experience easier. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is Speak Your Truth, The Untold. My name is Yana Positive. This was Sudi B.
Yeah, I am Sudani.
Sudani. This was Sudani. And we shared an airy space of inspirational,
relatable,
empowering, and elevating content. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining. And we'll catch you all next week. Same time, same place, Thursday at 8. So don't miss it out. And you guys, this season is gonna be spectacular. I have some great people coming on and some amazing content. And guys, I upgraded on every level for y'all. I know I was out for a while, but I upgraded for y'all. So you have to tune in. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Sudani.
Thank you.